Great Wall Gatehouse. He's into the Grenadiers. The Grennie boys. M-Lord and Viper at the tippity top of the leaderboards time and time again. In fact, at the time of recording, Viper is just one game away from getting that Conqueror rank. Marine Lord, on the other hand, he's been slipping, all right? I mean, he tripped over the soap and broke his neck or something here because he's actually down in 13th right now. Now, that is still very respectable. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, most people, I think when they were coming through this ranked leaderboard, some of the faces up in Conqueror already, the top 5, they would have expected. But I think a lot of people would probably expect to see M-Lord be probably first 3 to break into Conqueror. But seems like a little bit of a downswing. I'm sure he can turn that around, though. Some players have been grinding more. They've been going at it hard. At the time of recording, Marine Lord, he's sitting about 80% win rate in ranked. And Viper, he's been harder on the grind. I feel like he's been playing a lot more. Of course, he did start off the ranked leaderboards with the 20 win streak, which blitzed him up close to cracking Conqueror, then got pipped at the post by the #1 seed, who's currently still the #1 seed, Beastie Cutie. But right now, Viper in 6th place. Like I said, I think he's just 10 elo off getting into that golden Conqueror rank. Let's see if he can do it here. And interesting matchups as well, because the Chinese, like, it's kind of like looking at the Empires of yesterday and the Empires of tomorrow, right? Like, we've seen the Chinese kind of fall in popularity a little bit with the skews to the early builds with some slight tweaks of the numbers, right? Like, they fudged the viability of feudal rushing just because now you have to think about maybe going on the gold, which Marine Lord is doing. Then on the other side, surprise, surprise, the Snake who managed to completely annihilate the final day of Golden League, round 2, with the English is, and I can't believe this, playing more of the English. I feel like between Viper and the Muslim, like, they must actually, they've got to tank full responsibility for what's happening on the ladders right now. Remember that the English is by far the most played Civ in the highest level. Over 1600 elo, it's up at 22.8% win pick rate still. Win rate, 48.4, but you expect that sort of skew when it gets that popular. Interesting that things are starting to balance out a bit more, especially the Chinese seem like they're a little bit on the raise. Not in terms of their win rate, but they're up to an 11.6% pick rate. So I guess people kind of diversifying a lot. And I gotta see why. The Chinese still has a lot of potency, even with the recent nerfs. Now, the nerfs, I don't even know if I'd call them that as much as a kind of different direction. It is a slight nerf to have to pay gold instead of just the 150 food for the Imperial Official. It does stunt your timings in Feudal a little bit, but there's still a lot of potency later on the game. And I think the kind of perfect example of what happens when you cry for nerfs too hard is that in the process of everyone wow-wowing about mangonels and how they had to go, they had to be ruined, they did get nerfed. And I think what we always seem to forget, whenever we cry for someone to be nerfed, is we don't question whether that's keeping something else in check. And I'm not even talking about the Archer meta. I'm talking about the Nest of Bees, which the Chinese still have. It's kind of remarkable because that swings and roundabouts approach to like going about the Mangonels, nerf them into the ground as they did, in conjunction with the tweaks to the Abbasids and the Mongols build speeds, it put the Chinese up in the rankings. Like, they all of a sudden the only ones with that kind of saturation than are, right? Where you can't go for the full clump against this Civ because they might go into the bees. So let's see what the answer can be for Viper, because I wouldn't be surprised if he's thinking of playing forward before M-Lord can even reach that power spike for the Chinese. And he'll probably have a little bit of time, because usually when you look at the Chinese players, they tend to lurk around a little bit in the feudal age. They want to boom up. They want to get their second TC. They're not about racing all the way to the top instantaneously. It's not your HRE or your old school ruse. But similarly, you can say something comparative with the English at the moment, only it's the Dark Age difference, right? You can already see it coming out of Viper. It's actually interesting that he hasn't even thought about going up yet. Instead, he pushes a lot of farms, up to 8 already. Can't get the other one down because sheepies are in the way. Well, these ones, no, get them in. Okay, I'm not even going to question that Viper's going to move. Folks, we'll come back later. These sheep will be moved in. I've been watching too much Bronze Barbarians. It's getting to me. But you know what? In the meantime, Marine Lord will be first up. Does plop down the Barbican. Interesting choice here, but understandable. Remember that you are up against the English. This is one of those matchups where Barbican can be very good, simply because the English aren't going to push knights or cavalry very likely. If they do go into longbos, the longbowmen sneaking past here are going to take heavy damage. Each of them will probably get shot twice, so they're going to lose 60% of their HP around that mark. So then they don't become that big of a threat because they're so easy to pick apart. And before anyone says, just go around, lol, remember that the English longbowmen are old men with walking sticks. That's what it's not a longbow, folks. It's actually a makeshift walking stick. And it means that they move at 1.12 movement speed, which is, it just doesn't make it viable to spend that extra travel time going around the back. It also leaves you susceptible to flank. So that's why when you do go up against the English, especially on a choke point map as the Chinese, it's actually a better choice to go for Barbican. Because although Imperial Academy allows you to be more greedy, and although in this situation the Viper is not being aggressive, you don't have a guarantee of that. And unless you want to go for a second scout, which Marine Lord didn't, he can't actually rest assured that he's not going to get raided. Because he can't sit the scout in the base all the time. Remember that the Chinese benefit a lot from the sheep. Because you want to actually drop them next to the berry bush so that you can supervise the production there and basically turn all of these resource deposits into a 20% plus. Wait. Did Marine Lord do this intentionally? Interesting. So, now, those of us who don't focus on size for whatever reason we might have may not have noticed yet, but one of these is a lot bigger than the other. And Marine Lord took the baby tree line, which isn't exactly, like, you know, an efficient use. You want to, like, chop out down the front as well if you can. But I think this once again feeds back into the fact that he's up against an English player. I think he's worried about the longbow spam coming out. And if he went on this tree line, there's still maybe a potential opportunity that Viper could have snuck in with an outpost and then cut him off here, and he would have had to have built this back lumber camp anyway. But still kind of peculiar that he didn't go for it in the first place. Isn't going to slow him down too much, though. Second town center being boosted up already. After that, Marine Lord, you can see he almost has required food to go straight into the Imperial Academy as well, which will put him at 2.7 town centers effective. Speak of the devil, and it shall emerge. And at the same time, what's the play out of Viper? He's going for the Abbey of Kings. Okay. Well, I can't say I'm that surprised. This is Mr. Snake Man. There is kind of an unwritten rule in the meta right now. So to put it in coding terms, if name equal to the Viper and map equal Hill and Dale, then go multiple TC. Because I think that's what we're looking at here. Like, either he goes for a secondary TC through the Stone Gathering, or he just boosts up to Castle. And it looks like it's going to be the latter choice here, as he's almost ready to just go instantaneously up. This is a pretty powerful play. We've seen some players attempt this before, but it usually fell short due to early feudal aggression. But considering he's got a scout in his opponent's base, and he sees the layout with the secondary TC in Imperial Academy, this means that Viper's very confident about this play. Like, he didn't do this blindly. This is something that he's been remarkable at, and I've loved to highlight it day after day. I think, like, he's getting better and better. Like, honestly, if Viper's able to trounce people in Golden League Round 2 as it is, I don't want to see how he looks at the end of this, because the rate of improvement that I've seen out of this lad in the last few weeks, as he's hard to commit in the Age of Empires 4, has been remarkable. Like, from the scouting to the way he plays mid into late game, the exploitative nature of the way he tries to eco boom up, off the back of that information he feeds back, it's just, like, it's multifaceted, it's multi-layered. Some people might go with a scout, they'll get a little bit of info, and that will inform their next one play. You can see that Viper's already crafting 2-3 steps ahead, and he definitely done that with the play into the multi-farms, and then the immediate boost up into Castle Age quicker than a timing that Marine Lord can even match. They have to question what the response is going to be out of Marine Lord when he sees this. Because the problem is, because he goes for the second TC, he doesn't have any military infrastructure. This is all free. And you want to know why this is a big deal for Viper? You want to know why he loves rushing up like this so much? Watch what he builds the moment he completes this King's Palace. 50 more wood, we know what's coming, right? It's going to be the monastery play. This guy absolutely loves to play into relics. That's why he loves to rush castle. And because he's there a notable amount of time quicker than Marine Lord, even though the Chinese have the ability to supervise the monastery, Marine Lord might be less inclined to go for that play, knowing that Viper has that lead and knowing that he is this type of relic exploitive player. There you go, monastery, straight away. At the front of the base as well, a little bit risky, but does mean he's going to be a little bit more efficient in the pickup. And you can already see he's got a scout in the center, keeping an eyeball on what's happening in this area. Looks like this could easily end up being 4 relics in the hands of Viper. Maybe Marine Lord gets 1 if he chooses to even go for it. And you can see he's not rushing to catch up either. Actually, like, if Marine Lord wanted to catch up right now, he would have pulled the wood line across onto food and gold to boom up castle as quickly as possible, and then he would have dropped a temple himself and supervised it to get those monks out 2.5 times quicker than the standard rate. I think it goes down to about 17 seconds instead of 45. But considering he hasn't made that play, I think he's just going to forfeit the fact that Viper's likely to get 4 of these relics. He might actually push 1 or 2 horsemen as he has dropped a stable. But I wouldn't be surprised if we now see some aggression out of Viper. And there it is. Yeah, stable going up. So he'll have knights in the field. And it means Marine Lord can't really match this. He might try with the horseman, but it's going to be kind of a sunken investment. Because even in a 2-on-1 exchange at this point, feudal horseman versus castle age knights, the knight's going to win. Yeah. Also, 1 horseman shouldn't be good enough to kill off the monk by the time the knight arrives, but it looks like Viper's going to play it safe, so he peels back. He can still gather up the other relics, but the annoying part about dealing with horsemen is if you're playing blind, this unit does move remarkably fast. It's very good at aerial denial like this, so you can see that Viper has to double down, and this is stunning his timings. Now, right at this stage, you'll probably think, okay, so he stunned the timings. Marine Lord now has the option to go into the relics himself, right? Not entirely true, because although he stunted Viper's timings on picking up the relics, he's now stunned his own economy. Look at the difference here. He's got way too much gold, not enough food, because his horsemen are so pricey at 100 food each, and he has been pushing them. In fact, I think he's gone up to, what, 4 now? Yeah, 3 in the scout. So this is a heavy investment that has delayed your castle timing, and it means that while this has been happening, Viper has still been building more of these monks, right? As well as knights. So he's building a mass in the center that's going to keep value once you reach castle, whereas the horsemen are going to lose value, and that's why he makes this move. Straight in. Will deny the gathering the gold to try and slow down the tick up of monks and knights. But it's superficial damage. The issue of horsemen at this stage, it's just 9 damage. It's not really going to phase Viper too much here. In fact, if you go after him again, he could easily just pepper you with arrows. And look at this as well. All damage is negated because the Abbey of Kings. Y'all thought it was a meme. It's an efficient way to protect your villages when you want to be ultra greedy. Now knights will be able to chase him away, so this is where relics start to get gathered up. First one being brought back, second one on the way as well. And this is easily going to be 4. This might even end up being 5, because notice the Marine Lord is still stuck here. It's the food gathering. The food is a problem right now. He's gone hard into the wood. Wow, okay, so Marine Lord has... This is interesting what he's done here. So he's forfeited the castle age timing because he now realizes he can't compete on the relics. Some people are probably thinking, why? Why would you ever do this? This is kind of a throw, no? I think, realistically, like, Marine Lord's just weighed up the opportunity and seen it's not worth the cost. So instead, his plan now is to accrue a lot of wood and and he's definitely getting a lot of wood. I mean, folks, we have about 43 total villages on wood right now. The logic he's going for here is if I gather enough wood, and with this amount of gold I have in reserve because of my off-tilt eco, I'll be able to afford a lot of siege. So because he spent so much on horsemen, he knew he couldn't just actually calibrate perfectly for a castle. This way, though, when he booms up, he's going to be able to push a lot of Nester Bees. And Nester Bees could actually be the answer should Viper go into his more kind of stabilized later timing, where he looks towards Imperial and looks towards those hand cannoneers we know he loves so much. But in the meantime, you can see just he's going to yoink everything up. So this will end up being 500 passive gold per minute. And about the next 2 minutes, Viper, no way to stop that. And after that, I wouldn't be surprised if he tries to boost up into Imperial. Probably wants to get an eyeball on what his opponent is doing, though. Because the good news for Marine Lord fans is because he walled himself in, there's no info given. In fact, that info might be given over now. Like, this burn down the palisade is slow, but it's actually a long time for Marine Lord to reveal what's defending this area. And it should be spears coming out in just a sec. And yeah, they're already being produced. And there we go, stone walls up. Okay, I actually prefer this play out for Marine Lord. This is much better. It is a little bit risky because you're running out of resources. Like, because you've got so many villages up at 85 compared to 61 of Viper, you are burning through your wood fast. And remember, he had a baby tree line and then this, and that was it, right? They both got one baby tree line and one big. I actually quite like this design because I think it forces people to come out of the top of Hill and Dale quicker compared to their double fat wood line, which just allows you to camp on the high ground. So the upside downsides here is because Marine Lord walls himself in, Viper doesn't know what he's doing. It's a big question mark in his mind right now. It's like, okay, so are you going for the siege? Have you gone into spearmen? Am I expecting crossbowmen? He's not going to find out until Marine Lord has a sizable quantity of troops to push out with, and I love this play from him. And all the while, in the meantime, look at the way he stabilizes eco. Marine Lord now exceeding the food income of Viper, as you'd expect with that lead in the villager department. But don't worry, folks. Viper, he's evening up in different ways. Fourth relic about to be banked. I believe fifth one is going to be on the way back shortly. And also a keep in the center. This is very methodical. Viper's not rushing to the close of this game because he understands how much the map's under his influence. Now, Marine Lord might be able to boom up on his high ground for the moment, but the next 5 minutes, if he doesn't come out, he's in trouble. So for Viper, the more important detail that he's identified is he wants to start choking the map with these defenses, right? With keeps, outposts, knights prowling on the flanks. Any move out that Marine Lord makes, he wants to spot. And while he's doing that, also he's starting to build up the bulk, right? Archer's coming out. Crossbowman as well. Sometimes you forget that you can build these in the English, but it is permitted. It's not against the rules. However, with the Spearman coming out and them already being counterfeited by the Archers, it feels like Marine Lord might need a differing choice of approach here. He could go for the Spears in conjunction with the Bees, but so far Marine Lord hasn't actually built a single siege weapon. This is peculiar. He built up all this wood, and it seems it was just for the farm extension. My concern, though, is you're going to have limited options at this rate as you pick the rest of this line dry. And I can kind of see why he pushed away from the idea of Nest of Bees. Like, he already had the flexibility, right? Nest of Bees or farms. But when you see this many knights still being pushed by Viper, it probably seems like it's not worthwhile. Because remember, these units move quick enough to gap close and burn you down. Even if you build Spearmen, it doesn't really compare. The Spearmen at 1.25 to the 1.62, like, you're going to get outmaneuvered. So I like the switch up. But I do feel like he needs a way of moving out. A nice play for him would be to probably get some stone together and try to stonewall the eastern front here. Just so that he can get access to the eastern side of these true wood lines and then also have the backup golden stone. And then with that stone, he'll have a means of building keeps in the center as well. For now, Viper's kind of tired of this. So you can see he's starting to move out for those sacred sites. He's going to force Marine Lord to come out soon. But as it stands, Marine Lord is notably a disadvantage militarily, but he's looking to fix that now. Nest of Bees are finally being pushed. This is a heavy investment at this stage. Like we said, this wood line is getting thin, and he isn't holding wood reserves right now. So when he strikes out, it needs to be a decisive blow. The reason he's now switched to the Nest of Bees, by the way, are these units here. The Lombos and Crossbows. If you can get rid of them, the Spears can reign supreme if he reaches critical mass, because we'll have enough to defend the Nest of Bees and enough to chase around the Knights. Meanwhile, Viper just protecting his flanks, as we can see. No stone walls, though, so it's susceptible to potential raids. But it's unlikely that Marine Lord commits to that at this stage. And I think Viper's astutely aware of that as well. Like, M-Lord has been on the high ground way too long at this point, hasn't come out once. He's got to be tap and dry. We already highlight the wood line. He's only got this big fat gold left. And then in terms of, like, natural food, there's not much there. The farmland is also munching a huge amount of his landscape up here, meaning he doesn't actually have much wiggle room for future transitions. Like, actually, realistically, if you think about the layout of his base and the investment of racks already, if you start to get that phase in the game where you need 10 plus military production buildings to replace the losses, where do you build them? And that's why this moment is going to be important. Marine Lord now reaching up in the Spirit Way. This should be where we see a commitment. Question is, where is he going to go? Dynasty units? I don't think so. I think this might be the hand cannoneer play. He could actually still posh archery ranges around here for value later via the Grenadiers. But I think overall hand cannoneers and a quick push out is probably your best option. But for now, Marine Lord is choosing to just commit to the simple 1-2 punch of Bees and Spears. But he does need to go soon. Sacred Sites all under control of Viper, and Viper not long behind his opponent. Look how quickly he reached up. I mean, this is pretty pristine. Like, Marine Lord's income looks good, but I feel like Viper has just been kind of checking him at every turn. And now that you arrive at this point in the game, this is where you really boost up economically, because not only have you got another 5% on the gathering rates of all these farms, you can get this, the enclosures. And these enclosures are glorious, generating 1 gold every 3.5 seconds. Meantime, M-Lord taking advantage of the fact he's Imperial to push out the bombards, knows he needs to move fast. Central keep, a nice play here. Viper never extended with a secondary keep, so he's fairly defensive here. And you see now, Viper's kind of in this methodical stage we know he likes to arrive in, where he can just slowly push up to critical mass via the wing guard for the efficient value. Because remember, this army of a Lombo, Spearman, Man-at-Arms, Knight, and Trebuchet only costs 400 resources. That's less than what you pay for a Trebuchet. March in though, Viper. Quick to strike here. Keep is going to go up, but no point at all to protect it. However, the nest of bees is enough to deter, and this is what we're waiting for. Marine Lord, when he moves out strong, and just in time as well, as the wood line was down to its final tree. Now, he probably wants to get a secondary keep on the west side here. Would be to his benefit. But for now, the nest of bees will be enough to deter. Viper needs to go back to the drawing board, and this is where he needs more trebuchets. The issue with this is if you're relying only on the Wingguard powers to provide those trebs, you're going to be waiting a long time. One benefit you do at least get is this, right? You can actually get the good old network of castles, or network of citadels in this situation, buff for the treb to increase his attack speed. But it might be difficult to siege this down with just one. And you're definitely not out of the woodworks just yet. The bombards are somewhat unanswered. Viper moving in. Outpost does go up, though. And crossbows are simply going to be thrown away for nothing here. Well, that's happening. Bombards are going to start to move in. Viper, it seems like he feels a bit displaced here, and understandably so. Like, he got caught off guard by the nest of bees. It was such a long wait. Like, we actually highlighted for Marine Lord a long time ago, but the cool thing about what Marine Lord done here is instead of all-inning on the nest of bees at an earlier point, he padded his economy so he didn't have to rush out. Had he gone for what we were talking about originally, where he just invested all the wood instantly in the nest of bees instead of getting the farms first, he would have had to come out onto the low ground quicker than when he was ready, and it might have offered up an opportunity for Viper to overwhelm it. So it's actually to his credit the way he played this. And it means these nest of bees are still unanswered right now, and unlikely to be answered anytime soon. And the unfortunate detail for Viper is going into man-at-arms doesn't really solve the problem. A slow-moving unit. You're going to see that effect. They try to move in. Spears are going to engage. That's going to force the cluster. And once the cluster happens, the nest of bees can just rinse you. Hasn't turned yet. He's going to finally realize he has the opportunity, though. Round of fire coming in. Heavy damage done under the formation. Viper needs to wrap around, gets the torches out, and chases in. Nest of bees are exposed now, but heavy damage done to the man-at-arms. The trades so far have been good for Marine Lord. Will continue to retreat away. Two nest of bees still up. Torches out, still chasing. Viper, the armor-clad man-at-arms, will be able to gap close onto the bombards. The question is whether we'll be able to kill it. Clock Tower bombard is pretty tanky, but with the new reinforcements arriving, one or two of these seeds should be going down. It looks like he might just get it out, but no, nest of bees and bombard down. Heavy investment here. Man-at-arms almost paying for their investment. While that's been happening, look what Viper's now done. It's the typical snaky play. He takes a slight lead in this fight and is already pushing into the hand cannoneers, knowing that as he's playing the English, not only will he get the attack speed benefits, but he also has a very chunky, solid front line in the English armor-clad man-at-arms up at 8 armor and 180 health. And this is what we expected to see. This is a stage of the game where he's comfortable. Now, Viper is not going to be as easy as he maybe makes it look a lot of the time on the leaderboards right now, this hand cannoneer composition. As not only is Marine Lord up in Imperial, but he does still have the benefit of the nest of bees. Nest of bees in quantity can shred the backline of cannoneers. And that does work against the strategy if that happens for Viper, because the way Viper likes to play this composition is he builds a few hand cannoneers and then he mixes in frontline cannon fodder in conjunction with cheaper range units, longbows, archers, whatever he has access to. Then, as the fights go on, one after another, after another, after another, it's like doing some basic count. He's just adding the losses together, right? It's like, okay, I have 10 hand cannoneers remaining from that fight after we both lost everything. Gonna add another 10 hand cannoneers. All he's doing is he has a blueprint for his army design, right? And he just keeps producing it. And every time, because hand cannoneers are usually the last thing to go down, this quantity increases. And it's actually very beneficial, because not only is it your highest damage unit, it's also your most pricey at 240 resources. And here we go. Look what Marine Lord snuck. Great Wall Gatehouse. He's into the Grenadiers. The Grennie boys. This is actually a solid solution to the hand cannoneers. Now, hand cannoneers individually do a lot more damage, 35 compared to the 18 right now. Difference is you've got splash damage, and also the hand cannoneers tend to cluster together. Also the range, 4.8 tower range compared to the measly 4 tower range of the hand cannoneers means that you can frag out on them before they can even reach you. I love this play. Not only that, but because he built them around the Spirit Way, it's more cost effective. These Grenadiers usually cost 240 resources, same as the hand cannoneers, but he got a 30% discount on them, meaning these trades, even if they end up being 1-for-1, are better for Marine Lord. This is problematic because Viper doesn't have an answer. Grenadiers, a lot of players have been practicing for this build where they rush towards Grennies right now because they do seem omnipotent and unanswered. How do you deal with the Grenadiers? Well, you deal with them being AFK because the mistakes are made. Marine Lord, no! He's going to back away. Line formation. Look at the gap close straight away. Viper wraps around. Gets on the secondary wave. Forces him back. But sadly, because the range weren't in range here, he gets limited damage value in the proposition. We'll have to peel back. Luck for Marine Lord. Grenades do not affect your own troops. Otherwise, that would have been a lot of friendly fire. After that, a few more troops lost for Viper the other way. And this is the power range, folks. It's very difficult for these melee units to stick on top of their targets. Hand cannoneers being baited in are going to be picked apart. You got the baby cannons. Marine Lord got the big daddy cannons. Now the Grennies. Need to be careful of the Lombos. Lombos can outrange you. And remember, you do have the arrow volley, so you can actually shred them. And the attack speed buffer. This is to the detriment of Marine Lord. He needs to get out. Right now, he hasn't got the Yuan Dynasty, so he doesn't move quicker. I think this is maybe something that Marine Lord could optimize. Not having Yuan Dynasty when you're up against Lombos with Grenadiers, it does feel like you're just going to lose these fights. However, if Viper doesn't micro back... Okay. Well, that was meant to be a good trade once upon a time. But no longer is it the case. That being said, Marine Lord is draining himself dry right now. He's not keeping up on the food demand, right? Like, if you look at the numbers, income per minute, Marine Lord has shrunk because he never expanded, because he never came off the high ground. Remember, we highlighted this before. He has limited space. He needs it for military production. He had the racks to start off with, and now he has all these archery ranges. Where are the farms? He hasn't set them up here. He hasn't got the deer, he hasn't got the berries, and it's why Viper is just trouncing in the food department, in conjunction with the fact that he's the English that already gets big perks via the gathering rate being an extra 30% on the farms. And it means long-term, Marine Lord can't easily commit to this strategy if it doesn't end up in at least even trades, because the majority of the cost is still in food for him right now. It's kind of remarkable that as a Chinese, the thing that is actually being capped for him is food. Wood was being found, is a little bit starved now. Gold is going to be solid for a long time, mainly because of taxation. But that, speaking of the wood, he might have problems soon. Trebs are moving up. Viper's moving out. Bombards are going to make him feel like a pin in a bowling alley here. Chasing the Grenadiers up to 23 now. Notice there's been a complete shift in the plan. I love this from Viper. Adaptation. He's not pushing hand cannoneers anymore. The Lombos are the solution right here. And this is where you're getting punished. Arrow volley was already used to get that attack speed buffer. Also, the attack speed buff coming out from the network of castles means you might be in a wee little bit of trouble if you're Marine Lord. These trades one-on-one are not worth it. And the split up from Viper with so few longbowmen left, they're going to trade effectively here, and the Grenadiers are not. And while that's happening, he wraps around with some hand cannons and man-at-arms, he's straight in the bombards. Targeted out, chasing Viper, very methodical about this. Baits Marine Lord out, a little bit too deep in the way with the Grenadiers, and then splits him up from the siege line, the premium unit that's able to assassinate enemies one by one. And although he might lose the man-at-arms, he deters them away, he cleans up the Grenadiers, and he still takes one or two of the siege with him. Overall, these trades are pretty good from Viper. In fact, if we look at the military, so far Marine Lord is killing a lot more, but it's the price of what he's killing, right? These man-at-arms are 120. The Grenadiers still cost more than that. Then you've got the Lombos. The Lombos only cost 90. And they have definitely been trading out efficiently. And the remarkable part about it from Viper is he hasn't even been using staggered formation. Because if he uses staggered formation, he's not getting maximum DPS. He understands that he has a range advantage over these Grenadiers. So what he wants is to have all of his units firing upon the enemy as quickly as possible, and then try to micromanage that range to be in the 7 to 6 tower range threshold where the Grenadiers just can't reach you. And why is this happening? Because Marine Lord still doesn't have the speed. He still doesn't have the movement speed to gap close upon them. If he had that in the Grenadiers, he'd always get in range. The only time he actually does reach Viper right now is when Viper doesn't retreat quick enough. Speaking of Viper, one longbow to make them all leave. Look at this! Run, you cowards! Mate, this is no normal longbowman. This right here is Robin Hood. Fear him. I don't think I've ever seen one longbowman look so intimidating on a screen. And after that, Marine Lord now drained of wood. This is the worst case situation. This is actually horrifying if you're Marine Lord. This was everything to you. This was the world. This was your baby. This was what was going to allow you to build a beautiful ship and sail far, far away from this mean land. But you no longer have the wood for that. 172 wood. He needs his secondary line. If this ever gets denied, he flatlines. Especially with the demand in his composition. Grenadiers Trying to rinse through the man-at-arms. Springall's chasing in, looking on the bombards, but the bombards way too tanky. The trades are bad for Viper. Viper will lose the keep. Doesn't have the attack speed. Mistakes have been made. Viper, where's the outpost? Build an outpost. He needs the attack speed. Guard chasing in. Grenadiers targeting onto the Lombos, getting good value there. Bombards moving in as well into the Wingard Pass. Marine Lord identifies he needs to go now, and he sees a sign of weakness as Viper shifted the Trebs across, had the rest of the troops out of position, didn't defend the keep, and as a result of this, doesn't have the attack speed buffer to instantly rinse Marine Lord. But he's going to chase out anyway. Grennie, the count is going down. We're at 16 Grenadiers total. The Nest of Bees is his last hope at this rate. Springles are still being annihilated by the bombards with their supreme attack speed. And looks like Viper is going to have to back up once more, but Viper is the one with reserves. Look at the food and wood. Food and wood that Marine Lord no longer has, but Viper has plenty left off. Now, Guard, a good frustration. I like the switch up from Marine Lord. It's buying a lot of time and keeping the gap wider for the Grenadiers. The issue, however, is a Lombo still. If you don't move the Guard and the Lombos, it's not worthwhile. And look at the switch up again. Viper! He sees it. He sees the Grenadier count. He understands what's happened here. Marine Lord is wood-capped. He can't afford them anymore. So now he goes back for the pristine hand cannoneers. And this will eviscerate Marine Lord's front lines. And you don't even need many of them for it. Marine Lord will wheel back to step one, back on his high ground. Although he keeps the siege alive, there's not much else alive in his composition at this stage. Wood needed. Getting a decent amount right now. But look, Viper knows about this. He snuck around. He put the walls up. He put the outpost up. He sees everything right now. And he's going to move on it. Bombards and Nest of Bees working on the walls. The wall's very chunky at 4.5k HP, though. Won't die too quickly. And the Springall's trading out effectively now as the Man-at-Arms force out the retreat. Chase in. Man-at-Arms. They'll get good trades up against the Guard. And the hand cannoneers are just going to eviscerate that front line. Melting through it like a hot knife through butter. Like a hot gunpowder shot through butter here. And although the Springals go down, everything else might at this rate as well. Hand cannoneers, enough of them left that they can chase in and clean up the Bombard and Nest of Bees. And that's what they'll do. Man-at-Arms are still here, unanswered by Marine Lord. No answers really left at this stage. He has been picked dry, down to 30 military pop cap, and Viper still with the ability to push up higher. And oh my god, even the villagers are attacking with the bows. Which, in fairness, with a network of castles, this is not bad. It's slowly killing him. And Marine Lord, he's hemorrhaging here, keeps about to fall. Viper looking like he may have done it. The Treb count now up to 5, Springall's renewed up to 4. Meanwhile, Marine Lord barely able to get back up to 3 Bombards, can't afford the Nest of Bees anymore, can't afford the Grenadiers. This lack of AoE is going to boot him out of this game of AoE 4 as Viper looks to move in for the decisive blow here. His count just getting too high. Hand cannoneers unanswered. The last flurry of Grenadiers, his last hope here. Repair crew to keep the Bombard up. Hand cannoneers move in, and it looks like Marine Lord will not wait around. He knows when he is beat. The AoE splash looked good, but the price of entry too high will cost Marine Lord his life.